I think sometimes when we talk about this budget, we talk about it in silos as though it's only going to affect people who are on Medicaid or it's only going to affect people who benefit from some government services. You always look at the economy as this macro question. How do you think this bill, as written now, understanding it has to go through the Senate, impacts the economy as a whole?
Well, you know, people forget that a lot of what people are paying for their monthly budget is their mortgage. It's their credit card. Interest rates are still looking to go up because of the huge amount of debt that they are taking on to finance these tax cuts. All the health care losses are going to mean more of those medical bills that people have to battle on. And of course, if groceries and other key essentials are more expensive, we will pay for this in one way or another.
At the core of it, though, for a lot of those folks, in addition to the things you touch on, are some of the fundamentals. All right. So it's the food I put on the table, but it's the health care I got to pay for because I got a sick grandmama. I got a husband who's not doing well. I've got my own issues, my kids. You've got the Washington Post reporting Republicans trying to repeal Obamacare again. And look, for the record, everybody knows I was part of that fight.
Yeah, no, but it's okay. Go ahead. You know what? We'll take you. You know.
No. Look, I admit the loss then, right? We fought and we lost. The American people said they didn't want it. The Congress was able to do what they wanted to do, right? And that was 2010. Since that time, though, you have now congressional Republicans pursuing changes to the Affordable Care Act that would mean 10.7 million fewer Americans using its insurance marketplaces and Medicaid, a huge reduction that some view as a way to accomplish part of the health care coverage cancellation that failed in 2017. So even between that 2010 period and 2017, you can make the case, repeal Obamacare. But as I said in close quarters then, and continue throughout to say, what are you replacing it with? We still need to have a plan. Republicans have never offered a plan, nothing even close to viable as a plan. Repeal and replace is not a plan. It's not a strategy. It doesn't even, it's good rhetoric, and that's about it. So for a lot of Americans, that's when it gets real for them. When all of a sudden they've got these doctor bills and these healthcare expenses that hit them, but then pre-existing conditions come back. A lot of this narrative come back for a lot of families. How does that feed this unease that people have about what Republicans are doing?
Well, there's a real tension because on one hand, they're also saying people should have more children. People should have more families.
But they don't want to pay for the health care.
But if you're going to have no health care, if the cost of student loans and higher education is going to be jacked up, if it's more costly to get food, how on earth are you supposed to have more and more children to support when housing costs are still so burdensome and nothing has been done to address it? So to me, this is the canary in the coal mine for actually undermining how it would cost for a family to survive.
I think it's so important you keep talking about housing and these other costs that people find in that affects people in their everyday lives, because when folks talk about affordability, that is what they mean. The ability that they can afford to live how they would like to live every day. And that is grocery prices, yes. That is housing, whether it's rent or your mortgage. And I was looking at today, there are retailers who are raising their prices as Donald Trump's tariffs take hold. This is from CNBC. Multiple major retailers said they have already raised some prices or plan to hike them in the coming weeks to offset the duties. They include major grocers and consumer goods sellers like Costco, Best Buy, Walmart, and Target. I shop at Costco. Okay, I knew the prices was going up because I went into Costco the other day and I said, now, what is going on? I still bought it. But if I'm noticing the numbers, I could imagine folks who are literally living paycheck to paycheck, how they're feeling.
Well, if you look now, even at Walmart, we're seeing reports of triple-digit percentage price increases from rolls of tape to toys and more. And I think we all need to watch, even if Trump does tariffs, takes them away, retailers are starting to tell people, we're just going to raise prices no matter what, because we can pin the blame on the tariffs just like we pin the blame on COVID shortages. And the result is going to be gigantic price increases, big profits for corporations. But those people living a paycheck to paycheck, they're going to be big in debt because of it.
And then those prices become sticky and it becomes harder.
That's right. It seems they never come down. We all still walk down the grocery store wondering, how on earth is this cereal $6.59? There's 100 cereals, 3 cereal companies. It's easier and easier for them to push up the prices.
But that also speaks to, on the price side, manufacturers and retailers, et cetera, they can jack their prices. The assumption is that the consumer is going to pay. And at a certain point in any given economy, this is a real thing, consumers decide, you know what, I'm not going to spend that money because my budget has gotten smaller now. It's tighter because there's less revenue coming in. The cost for the things that I've got to spend for has gone up. So consumers then make those choices where they impact the market too by their behavior. It's not just this is the impact of tariffs. It's not just what the retailers and the supply chain and all that is. It's on the other end of that how consumers then to say, you know what? We're just not taking that vacation. We're not going to go spend for this. We're not going to buy that. We're not going to get all these supplies that we would normally get at the beginning of the school year. That's the other impact. So when you start destabilizing the economy at both ends, that's the concern the Fed has had, and that's the line that they're trying to walk on tax, on interest rates, for example. But those other personal economies are big drivers, too.
Well, we're seeing that. There's signs that even upper income consumers, credit card delinquency is going up.
Yeah.
Auto loan delinquency is going up. FICO scores, those are our credit scores. First time in a while, they're going down. So we're already seeing the rubber band stretch for families. And who knows, this could make for many of them snap. And, you know, some people, though, they cannot reduce their spending.
Right.
They need the diapers, they need the milk, they need to put food on the table, and they're the ones who are really going to get hit.
So you know all the work you spent the last few years doing is they're busy undoing it at the CFPB. They're also busy rolling back regulations from the post-financial crisis here. I'm going to read you something from Politico, and then you're going to explain it to me in English because it has to do with banking. Trump-appointed regulators are nearing completion of a proposal that would relax rules on how much of a capital cushion the nation's largest banks must have to absorb potential losses and remain solvent during periods of economic stress. What does that mean for the average person?
Well, for those who remember 2008, the banks actually got bailed out by the taxpayers. And the reason why is because their shareholders had such little skin in the game that when they had big losses, in order to protect the system, the government had to step in. So what we are seeing is another effort to roll back these regulations. And I think this is an invitation for more bailouts, just so bank executives and their shareholders can get richer. We saw this. The last Trump administration did this, and we had 3 major banks, Silicon Valley Bank, collapse over the course of a few days. And guess what? I had to vote for this, too. The government had to step in. I don't think Americans want large banks bailed out at a time when their health care is getting cut, when fundamental services are being destroyed, and they're just trying to get by.